The OMAC Project. This is the 7th of the Hachette Partworks hardcover collection, DC Heroes and Villains. It's the usual high quality hardcover from them, number 30 on the spine. The OMAC Project is a mixed bag. It collects Countdown to Infinite Crisis 1, Superman 217 and the OMAC Project 1 to 6, and a few pages and a text explanation of what happens in the comics that are connected to this event but not actually collected herein. It sets up the Infinite Crisis miniseries and event that was to follow, and this Partworks collection is collecting the Infinite Crisis storyline in a very thorough way, as far as I can tell, with all the connecting crossover issues and storylines, or at least the important ones. So, let's dive into this first volume. The writing in the first story here is split between Greg Rucka, Jeff Johns and Judd Winnick, with Rucka taking sole credit for the 6-issue miniseries. If you're new to reading events such as this, then you may wonder why, when you're reading it, there are sections within these issues that set up other comics and characters almost randomly dropped in, and they do stop the natural flow of the story. New comics readers may find this a tad confusing, to suddenly have a page of the story given over to characters that seem disconnected from the current story. But this was the way, and is the way, of multi-part crossover events. This is the comic company's way of trying to get you to buy every issue that they're putting out that month. You can't miss anything that's happening in this event. You must have all issues. That's all fine and well, but you don't need to buy every connecting issue, and by having them linked into the main miniseries, it can be just a little bit jumpy to read. As always with this collection, there's a good introduction and supplementary material. In this case, the supplementary material helps readers navigate their way through any crossover confusion they may have. The story of Countdown to Infinite Crisis 1 is a prequel to the main event, but it's a fairly good little story in its own right. It follows Ted Kord, the Blue Beetle, as he uncovers a plot by former Justice League boss Maxwell Lord. Ted asks the various heroes to aid him in his work to uncover Lord's villainy, but only his former teammate Booster Gold comes to his aid. Lord's devious plans involve a reimagining of Jack Kirby's OMAC concept as a Manchurian candidate-inspired Big Brother AI with multiple unwitting victims that can be turned into remote-controlled super agents. That's a hell of a mouthful. Spoiler alert. At the conclusion to the Countdown of Infinite Crisis issue 1, Maxwell Lord is confronted by the Blue Beetle, and he offers him the chance to turn to the dark side. When Beetle refuses, Lord blows Beetle's brains out. This is a catalyst for everything that follows. Now, I have a major problem with this storyline. When I originally read the story in a trade collection, I disliked this conclusion. I hated the transformation of Maxwell Lord from what I considered a nuanced three-dimensional character into a poorly written two-dimensional and cliched pseudo-Bondian villain. Years of work done by the writers J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen in Justice League International and Justice League Europe back in the late 80s were, to my eyes, undone in this issue, or at least that's how it appeared to me on first reading. On returning to the story of a few years' distance, I haven't changed my mind one bit. I think it does a good job of setting up the event to follow by centering it around a personal tragedy. I just can't see the connective tissue between the character dynamics in the old Justice League comics in this story. It just seems off to me. This won't be a problem for anyone that's new to these characters, but if you loved the original Justice League International run, you're probably going to have problems with the characterisation of Maxwell Lord in this book. Greg Rucka in the Excellent Extras section states that anyone who read Justice League in the late 80s and thought that Maxwell Lord was a good guy weren't reading the story. In other words, his two-dimensional reading of the character is the only valid one. I cry bullshit. I know the character of Maxwell Lord, and this two-dimensional thug in this book isn't him. Unfortunately, he is now the canon version of Maxwell Lord that we're stuck with. There you go. There's a good Superman story in here written by Mark Verheiden that works as a self-contained tale. It's got consistent characterisation, a solid theme, and it makes me want to read some more Verheiden Superman. They didn't have to include it as part of this collection, but it is a tie-in and it's nice to have it here. The 6-issue OMAC project is a mixed bag and, if I'm honest, a bit of a chore to get through. It harkens back to the previous event series called Identity Crisis, which was in a nadir of DC Comics miniseries events, a nasty, misogynistic, exploitative mess that thankfully appears to not be part of this Partwork series, but if it is, I'll do a full review and it'll probably be about a half hour long. The inclusion of 2 pages from Superman Wonder Woman tie-in to show the fate of Maxwell Lord is included, but seems clumsily added and should surely have been retold within the main OMAC project miniseries at the time, perhaps even from another character's point of view. How important moments from other series like this are incorporated displays the problem with multiple tie-ins. It's difficult to make it all work coherently when you collect the issues into a single volume like this. This is not a criticism of the Hachette collection, but of how the original series was edited. Hachette and series editor Nick Jones have done the best job possible here in presenting this material. Compared to previous collected releases, this is the one to get if you want to experience the OMAC project in its most complete and cohesive form. In the latter half of the book, much of Rucka's focus is on espionage and the character of Sacha Bordeaux, his own creation, and he seems invested in fleshing out her character and her situation. It seems as though the focus here is still on the personal and on the story's effect on the individual. It's just that so much gets in the way of this as other storylines are set up and collide. But if you can focus on what he's doing with her character, then there are moments to be enjoyed. If this had been approached as a one-shot, as the Ted Cord story had been, I believe it could have been more focused. So, the OMAC project, final thoughts. A mess. One that long-time DC fans can no doubt get something from, but a mess. Make sure to subscribe so as not to miss the Aquaman the Trench review coming soon, and please take the time to like this video and let me know your thoughts on the OMAC project in the comments below. And what do you think about the take on Maxwell Lord? Were you a long-term Justice League reader who was as annoyed as I was, or do you just not care? Anyway, thanks for listening.